appreciate your generosity and your support and your time. I know there are probably other ways to spend a beautiful Sunday afternoon. At least I'm told there might be other ways. We've been very lucky. We've had 300 people sign up to host house parties like this. 3,000 folks have signed up to knock on doors and make phone calls like a lot of the folks who are here. And 10,000 people have offered their financial help to this campaign, which is one of the reasons I believe we're winning the race for the Democratic nomination to the United States Senate. So I want to say first, thank you very much for doing that. It means a lot to me, and I know to my mom, who is here as well. So
hey, Mom! Yay, Cap!
Mom is the shy and retiring part of the family, so I'm sure she hasn't offered you any advice at all. Fatten them up, marry them off. My mom.
That's exactly what she said.
That's exactly what she said. Yeah. Subtlety, not really my strong suit. I want to recognize a couple other folks who are here as well. Eva Henry, who's a councilwoman from the city of Thornton, is here. And Nancy Jackson, who's a candidate for county commissioner here. Nancy and I were just talking about this. One of the most unusual experiences on the campaign trail is meeting folks who have not engaged in politics at all. And I just want to start there. I was at a cookout in Commerce City a couple nights ago, and a man came up to me. He said he drives a truck for a living. He puts about 500 or 600 miles on the road every day. He drives an 18-wheeler. And he said, "You are the first politician I've ever met." So I said, "I'm sorry to, break your streak here." And he said, "No, he said, it's okay." He said, "I just want to tell you," he said, "just please don't get indicted." So we have really raised the bar for candidates for public office. This is the first pledge I will make to you this afternoon. I will not get indicted. I will do nothing that deserves an indictment or a conviction. I believe we should raise the bar. I think especially now, we ought to demand more from our elected officials and people who seek public office than just an ability not to commit crimes. This is an important time in American history. In my view, this is our best chance ever to make a meaningful difference in the lives of ordinary Americans. And we have not yet seized that opportunity. When so many people are losing so much ground, when so many people in this country, millions of Americans, are losing their jobs and their homes and their savings and their pensions and their health coverage and their lives, you wouldn't know it. I think that the pain that so many people feel in their own lives is not matched by the pace of progress on Capitol Hill, especially in the United States Senate, which has become, as somebody put it, the place where good ideas go to die. I am running for the U.S. Senate because I want to use the power we've got to transform public policy, which has been stymied in just about every direction. I told somebody the other day, I think the President of the United States probably inherited the worst mess of any president in American history. But the fellow I was talking to, a history buff, corrected me. He pointed to Lincoln. So we can say the second worst mess in American history. And it's a shame. It's worse than a shame. It's a crime. And it's the product, in part, I think, of a broken political system that has elevated the role of special interests and reduced the power of people. And you can see it in every area. You can see it in financial reform. Wall Street watered down the changes we need to make to its practices. The folks who gamble with our economy treat America like a casino and squander our savings. You can see it in the healthcare debate when we didn't get a public option because the insurance industry killed that plan. Drug companies cut deals. You can have that. With, we're a dog family anyway. You heard me say water. And you can see it certainly in what I view as the most important debate of all, or the debate that's not taking place. It's a debate about how we revolutionize energy policy in America. I'll tell you this, if the catastrophe in the Gulf, the worst economic and environmental disaster in American history, does not awaken this country to the dangers of foreign oil and fossil fuel, nothing will. This is the chance we've got, I believe, to end our addiction to oil and gas and begin to use our sun, our wind, our biomass, our geothermal energy sources so that we can leave our kids a world where they no longer have to spoil their oceans or spill their blood or foul their skies just to power their planet. We can get from here to there if we're willing, in turn, to free Congress from the grip of big oil and the big money they use. Because as disastrous, as sickening as heartbreaking as it is for us to watch this oil slick spread through the Gulf and destroy the lives and livelihoods of so many folks in the coastal communities and the wildlife who live there, it is only the product in part of an even bigger slick of oil money that is spreading through Congress and washing away our hopes for reform. And it has infected Colorado as well. I'll give you a quick example. The Senate had a chance just 2 weeks ago to remove some of the tax breaks the oil and gas industry gets, about $35 billion a year, and use that money to reduce the deficit and invest in energy efficiency and energy conservation. The Senate had that chance. They turned it down. My opponent voted no as well. And then the members of the Senate who opposed that plan, who stood with big oil instead of the rest of us, got rewarded with hundreds of thousands of dollars in campaign contributions from the oil industry. In fact, my opponent has now rocketed to the #2 spot among Democrats in Congress, right behind Blanche Lincoln from Arkansas, as a top recipient of oil and gas contributions. Everybody else on the list is a Republican. He's the #6 recipient of Wall Street cash. It's a conflict of interest, in my view, to take money from the industries you're supposed to be regulating. And that's essentially what we've done. We have corrupted Congress with a flood of corporate cash and washed out a lot of Americans' faith in the political process too. I started, and maybe I'll end, by talking to you about the fellow I mentioned who drives a truck for a living. He came up to me and said, I am a simple man. I've never met a politician. I've never made a campaign contribution. And I want to know who in Washington is going to fight for a guy like me. He said, I don't make a lot of money. I work pretty hard. I'm lucky to have the benefits that, my union has won for me. And I'm trying hard to provide a better quality of life for my kids, which is what drives everybody. And I want to know, if you go to Washington, what's going to stop you from drinking the whatever it is in the water supply that surrounds the Beltway and causes you to shed the principles you brought there. So what I told him is this. I'm the only candidate in this race who doesn't take a dime of corporate cash. My view is ExxonMobil and BP and Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan and Aetna, those special interests have enough politicians on their payroll. We need a senator for the rest of us. Somebody who is willing to put the interests of his or her constituents ahead of their corporate contributors. That'll be an easy decision for me because I don't have any corporate contributors. I'm not just the only candidate in this race who's taken that approach. I'm one of the very few in America. I take some inspiration from the president himself, who took the same path to the White House in 2008. He showed that you can actually win a seat in national office, not just by trolling for dollars on Wall Street, but actually by listening to people on Main Street. That's the approach I took throughout my career, to actually open my office hours to ordinary citizens, to hold town meetings, to televise the legislature for the first time in the history of Colorado, to try to put people first. And it's an approach we need, I believe, now more than ever in Washington, D.C., a town that has forgotten folks like the truck driver I mentioned. But he deserves a voice and a vote, and that's what I intend to provide when I get elected to the U.S. Senate with your help. I'm happy to take your questions. I really, really appreciate your time and your consideration this afternoon. Thank you. I was going to drink some water, but I think I'll get you another one. That's right. Yes.
The article in the Denver Post saying that you were behind.
Right.
It didn't seem like that made sense in terms of the primary.
No, it doesn't, and it's not true. And I'll offer you a couple thoughts. You're not supposed to pick fights with people who buy ink by the barrel. But I'll tell you this. The publisher of the Post was quoted himself a few months ago as saying, I couldn't win this race, I couldn't get any traction, and then has made sure that his newspaper denies me any traction that I need. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, not a real work of objective journalists. The problem with the Post poll is this. It was conducted by a machine. And what the Post uses to survey voters is an auto dialer. So let's say, thank you, that you are a Democratic primary voter, but you live with somebody who isn't, or you've got a relative or a friend who also happens to be stopping by the house that day, or a dog who knocks the phone off the hook. The machine can't tell the difference. So it dials your home, somebody answers, maybe it's the voter they have in mind, maybe it's somebody else, maybe it's an animal. It's all right, we're sharing.